Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. In this episode, I'm going to share with you the most powerful journaling practice I've ever experienced. And that is saying a lot. I have been an avid journaler for many years, most of my adult life. I have countless numbers of physical journals filled with thousands of pages of handwritten journal entries. Not only that, I have thousands and thousands of pages of digital handwritten journal entries in the form of the Good Notes app or maybe in the Notability app on my iPad. And then between regular .txt files put in some sort of archival folder inside of Dropbox. And then there was a time back when I was doing some journaling inside of Evernote, inside of a notebook there. And then eventually I had played around with the Day One journaling app, which I loved, but found that it was too limited for me. And eventually, over time, I moved my journaling over to Notion. Notion, the note-taking app, and of course that's saying it lightly. It's a lot more than a note-taking app. But anyway, I have journaled in many forms and in many different ways I have journaled. And it has been the most life-giving practice of at least one of the most life-giving practices. I'd say daily meditation and prayer is right up there with journaling, and specifically what I call reflective journaling. Anyway, an avid journaler. But what I can tell you, what I've experienced, and I'm opening up an app on my phone right now just to see if I can't quickly glance at a date. Today is my 56th day of doing this particular daily reflective journaling practice, and I want to tell you about it. I've been journaling throughout my life. Whenever I face a certain situation that comes up that seems to challenge, my expectations, what I thought that I was going to experience, whenever something undesired, inconvenient, or just out of the norm comes up and I need to process this, oftentimes I will turn to my journal and start writing what's been going on and then reflecting on that and sharing my thoughts so first it's documenting and then saying, but here's what I know to be true. And then there's this different part of me that's separate from this inner narrator that's kind of got this doom and gloom of, here are my thoughts, here are my fears, here's my anxiety, here's my worries, here's my frustration. There's that side of me, and I document that, and then I will share a reflective, it's still very much me, but it is this more grounded version of me that is able to see it from a different perspective. And when I journal, I become a lot more aware of the inner narrator and also that more grounded part of myself. So reflective journaling has always been a part of my life. But what I've been doing recently has amplified my desire to live a life where I am consistently setting intentions for how I want my day to go, how I want my week to go, how I want my month to go. And now, how I want my next few hours to go, my next few minutes to go at times. So I've always been a person who has been very much desirous of this idea of living present in the moment, setting my intentions for what I choose to do rather than I'm reacting in the moment. And I always have this value of self-awareness. I want to be aware of what's going on rather than being the type of person who is simply reacting by default based upon my prior nervous system wiring, conditioned thoughts, the ways that just I've reacted in the past. So yeah, journaling has helped through that process. That's what I want to say. So the thing that has changed for me is I recently made a purchase, and that purchase is a device called the Plaud Note Pro. Now, I had originally purchased the Plaud Note Pen from the Plaud, Plaud company, and I did not like that device. I still own it, haven't used it since I took it to Social Media Marketing World 2025. And I found that it was too clunky. I didn't like whether or not I knew it was recording or not recording. There was just so many things that I didn't like about its accessibility. And so for me, it was just a no-go completely. But then I found and discovered the Plaud Note Pro, and this is so thin. It's about the size of a credit card. It's actually about the size of 2 or 3 credit cards stacked on top of each other. But it's a digital audio recording device is all it is. And it's got 4 little hair-thin pin little microphones that are noise canceling. So it's got an array of microphones so that it can kind of hone in on the sound and filter out some of the background sound. And this little credit card sized device can record anywhere between 40 to 50 hours worth of audio, depending on what setting you have as far as the audio quality is concerned. And if you are interested in recording like a lecture, or if you're going to a conference and you want to hear a talk, it can actually record from a pretty good distance away if you're in a classroom setting where the teacher or the lecturer or the workshop leader is not mic'd up and it's a room of 40 to 60 people. If you're in the back of the room, this thing will pick up everything. It is amazing. But I don't necessarily use it for that purpose, although I can see many situations where I might. But I'm going to share with you why I bought this little device. The other thing that I like about the Plaud Note Pro device that I have is it comes with a MagSafe wallet. And this little tiny credit card sized audio recorder fits right inside of this MagSafe wallet, and it adheres right to my phone, and it goes with me everywhere I go. And because it is so thin, it almost does nothing to the profile of the phone. It goes into my pocket just like anything else. So what I want to do is I want to share with you why I purchased the Plaud Note Pro. Well, the reason is that I speak at a lot of conferences, and I have the opportunity to get on stage and share valuable insights with individuals related to my experience with podcasting, online business, mindset, so many other various different topics depending on what the conferences are. And I've had the honor and privilege of speaking to rooms with 20 to 30 people, 100 to 200 people, and much, much larger audiences. And no matter where I go, I always had the opportunity to have some amazing conversations with people who come up to me after my talk. We meet out in the hallway, and there's usually a significant crowd, and we chat about different things. Then throughout the rest of the event, I'm stopped consistently in hallway conversations. And then there are lunch invitations. There are invitations to this little event, that little event, this meetup, that meetup, this networking party, just all of these people, right? And so what I would do prior to owning a little digital audio device, I used to go and create a digital note, and it would just be on an app on my phone. Let's just say it was Evernote back in the day. And I would create a notebook called Social Media Marketing World. And at the very top of that note, I would put the name of the person that I just spoke to, and then I would create a bullet point list of every detail that they shared with me about who they are and what's going on in their world. And then I would close the phone, I would go and have the next conversation, and again, have a 15, 20-minute deep conversation with someone. And then once I complete that conversation, again, I'm looking for a little place I can hide by myself, open up that same note, drop down a couple lines, put the name of the person I just spoke to now, and then create a bullet point list of everything that they shared with me. And the reason why I began this practice years ago was due to the fact that I recognized that very little information that people shared with me in these hallway conversations, or these conversations at networking parties, or conversations over lunches and dinners and all the other stuff, very little of the details that are shared with me had ever made it from my short-term memory into my long-term memory. And in fact, there'd often be times I met so many people that by the third day of the event, I don't even remember meeting some of the people on the first day. And so I found that I needed a way to log these memories, these details. And it has been a great practice. And so when I started to see these AI note takers that are hardware devices that you can stick on your phone, or some people like to wear them as a little thing on your bracelet on your hand, or hang it on a pendant around your neck, or pin it to your shirt or whatever. I did not like that device, but man, this little hardware device that sits on the back of my phone, I'm like, yep, that's the one for me. And I'd been thinking about using that to replace it. And I went to Social Media Marketing World 2025, spoke to hundreds of people, and through all of those hallway conversations, networking parties, and lunches and dinners, I logged notes on 115 different individuals. And the details that are included in those notes are so far above and beyond what I used to try to hand type onto my phone afterwards, because I'm just speaking as quickly as I can. It's capturing everything in the audio. And then what I do is I take all of those little separate audio recordings, and the Plaud app allows me to take all of those audio recordings and merge them into a single file, and then have it transcribed. And then I have a very custom and very powerful script or prompt that I give ChatGPT, and it was able to instantly go through and organize all of my notes on all of the individuals and format it in such a way. And the beautiful thing is there was actually 4 different days worth of these notes. So there were 4 different combined 4 merged files and 4 different transcripts. And several people I met more than once. So there were far more recordings than 115. But the beautiful thing is that this ChatGPT prompt, when it looked at all of the different transcripts, because it evaluated all 4 transcripts for all 4 days at once, it was able to combine automatically bullet point items from day 1's conversation for this individual, as well as a short little conversation on day 3 and another very long conversation on day 4. And it's all under one. And it did it all for me because of the prompt. It is beautiful. That is why I purchased the Plaud Note Pro. Now, I just want to say, for just the purpose of sharing this process, I made the very intentional decision to not covertly try to record conversations with people that I'm having these conversations with. Now, there is the potential that I could have just hit the record button right as I see somebody coming up to me, and this thing could just be recording the entire conversation. And boy, that would probably have captured even more information and more detail than I was able to download after I was no longer right directly in front of them. But I know that each state has certain recording laws, and no matter what state, I recognize that a majority of people would be weirded out if they knew that I was recording them without their consent. And so I just chose to not record my conversations with people. By the way, there was occasionally a point in some of the conversations that said, Cliff, oh my gosh, I would really like to fill in the blank. I'd like to have you as a guest on my show. I'd love to engage with you in coaching if you're available. These kind of things. And as soon as somebody said something like that, I said, hey, do you mind? I have an audio recorder here. Do you mind if I hit record and record your name and all of this stuff so I can make sure that I follow up with you? And they're like, absolutely, sure. And then I hit the record button and I say, I'm talking to fill in the blank of their name. It is such and such date at such and such time. And we were just here in this environment. And here's what so-and-so has shared with me. And they're looking for this and hoping that we can connect. And I need to follow up specifically on this, this, and this. And then I said, hey, do you mind if I keep this recording so that I can record this? And they're like, absolutely, that's fine. And then I would have the rest of the detail. But that's few and far between. But I just want to say that I highly encourage you to be very intentional about your decision on how you're going to be recording conversations with people. I personally chose not to do that unless there is expressed consent, that they're completely aware of what I'm doing. And I would say that was probably only 20% of the time when somebody's said, I want you to follow up with me, or I'm going to follow up with you and I'm going to request this of you. And it's only in those cases that I did it. Otherwise, all I did was I went and recorded in a private place after the conversation was over. And then I just downloaded from my mind with my voice into this recorder everything I could do. And I just went on. And there was it was so much easier. Anyway, it was brilliant. That's why I purchased the Plaud Note Pro. Now, with that being said, I will share with you that I started to find a use for this device that I was not anticipating when I bought it. I started to find myself recording little audio journal updates. Now, I've done this in the past with the Voice Memos app. I've done it with my Just Press Record app. And the idea is that I would record some sort of thought or experience that I'm having, and later I could take the audio recording of that, have it transcribed, and then I would copy and paste that transcript into my Notion journal. I'd clean it up, and then I would process my own thoughts on it. And eventually, ChatGPT came into my life, and I even found a way to interact and process and get reflections and mirror back to me certain things that it's able to see that I'm not able to see myself. It's just mirroring back to me certain patterns. And I'm like, this is absolutely amazing. So I had already been playing around with using apps on my phone and or my Apple Watch Ultra, such as the Drafts app, the Voice Memos app, and Just Press Record. And the thing is that those did not stick. There were problems with using the app. And the problems that I would run into is that occasionally a phone call would come in and it would take over the microphone and it would shut down the recording right in the middle of it. There were notifications that would come in, and an alarm might cause it to stop recording. There was all sorts of things that, whether it's on my watch, if it's an app on my watch or an app on my phone, the problem is that occasionally those apps, without me being aware of it, would stop recording. And that's just not good. And because of that, it wasn't sticky. But the Plaud Note Pro on the back of my phone, as soon as I press and hold the button, it instantly gives a haptic feedback. And by the way, the Plaud Note original device, that's about the same size, same weight as this, it has 2 mics instead of 4. It does not have the haptic. But also, I will share with you that it also has an OLED display. So it's got super bright, very clear display on this little tiny recording device. And so it's very easy for me to see that it is in fact recording if I want to. And then I press and hold for it to stop. It gives me that haptic feedback. And I have never once in 50, however many days I told you, just let me click it here again and I will, in 56 days, not once in 56 days has there been a failed recording. Now, have there been times when I was recording and a phone call came in? Yes. And you know what? The phone call gets recorded in the midst of it. It's not a big deal. It just continues going. Have alarms gone off? Yes. Have notifications come in? Yes. And because this little Plaud Note Pro is a hardware device on the back of my phone and not an app in my phone, not once has it ever failed to do what I desire for it to do. So, because of that, I actually found myself occasionally having an experience. Maybe I just read something in a book and I just highlighted an insight and I'm like, oh, I need to process this. And I'm not at a place where I have a keyboard and mouse in front of me. And I'm not at a place where I have a physical journal and a pen for me to write all of this stuff out. And so instead, what do? I just pick up my phone, turn it over, press and hold the button, and I'm like, hey, it is Sunday, May 24th, 2026 at 9:09 p.m. And I just read this statement or this thing, and I'll read it out loud, and then I'll process my thoughts on it, and I'll just record this insight, and then just start speaking about what I'm thinking and how this might inspire new ideas and what I might change and what I might do and all of this other stuff. And then I know that I can take that and transcribe it later and then bring that into my journal because it's in the unfiled section of the Plaud app automatically after I have finished recording. And I found that I was doing this frequently, like several times a week. And it was amazing. Every time I've ever done any journaling, it's amazing. But the fact that I was doing this more frequently when when I don't have a keyboard and a mouse in front of me, when I don't have a handwritten journal in front of me, I found myself capturing insights. But I also found myself capturing all sorts of other things. All right? And so the idea eventually was born to create what I now call my daily logs. Now, when I explain this to some friends, I sometimes talk to people who are old like me. And those people know what Star Trek is. And whether it's Star Trek, the original series, or Star Trek, the Next Generation, they all know what it means for somebody to sit down and tap a little device and say, Captain's log, star date, such and such. And then they begin to record what's going on. Journaling. It's audio journaling. And so what I've been doing is I have gone throughout the day and I've started to record reflections that actually contain the insights that are occurring to me. I sometimes will be hit with a situation or a circumstance that feels significant, whether it's pleasant and pleasurable and exciting, and I want to capture some thoughts about it, or if it's one of those unanticipated, unexpected, undesirable, inconvenient situations, and I need to process my thoughts on it, and I'm not at my keyboard, I will record all of my observed thoughts and my emotional state and the details, and I will reflect out loud and I will capture it. And I found myself doing that consistently at various points throughout the day on an ongoing daily basis. So here's what I will share with you. I'm going to share the entire process of how this happens. So the very first log that I make in the morning, I will hit the record button on the device and I'll say, hey, it is, and I'll say the day of the week, the month, the day, the year, and the time. So let's just say this morning it's Sunday, May 24th, 2026. It is 5:06 a.m. I will start just like that, only for the first recording of the day. Then, as soon as I've logged the day, the month, the day, the year, and the time, I then just share whatever's on my mind to share. I will, oftentimes in those morning reflections, I will record any details that are still captured in my mind if they haven't faded away from any of the vivid dreams that I woke from. This has been incredibly powerful. Of course, this has been a part of my journaling for many years, trying to capture details of my dreams. So I enjoy basically creating logs of what my dreams are when I can do that. However, that had not been as much of my journaling practice in the recent years, as consistent as it once had been in the past. But now I can tell you for 56 days, it has been very, very detailed. I have lots of details about dreams. It is awesome. Okay. But also I make note of how well did I sleep? Did I find myself waking up a couple different times throughout the night thinking it's time to wake up, and I'm like, oh, I still got 6 more hours to sleep kind of deal. How am I feeling in the morning physically, mentally, emotionally, etc.? I make notes of all of that stuff. Sometimes I think about, hey, what comes to my mind as far as what my intentions are for the day? What am I excited about? Those sorts of things. And then I hit stop and I just go on with getting ready for the morning. Then at random parts of the day, I will record whenever, just various different points. Now, there is no rhyme or reason of when I choose to do it. I could actually have as few as 4 different recordings for an entire day. I could have 20 different recordings for an entire day. There really is no rhyme or reason. Sometimes I will record when I'm clear and grounded. Sometimes I will record whenever I notice that I'm agitated or I find that I'm avoiding something. I will hit record if I feel tired, a sense of fatigue, and try to process that. I'll record if I'm experiencing either fear or anxiousness or worry. If I find myself getting distracted, I will record about that. If I find myself experiencing resistance to something that's on my to-do list, sometimes I will record about that. I just hit record. It's there with me all of the time. It doesn't take anything to take those thoughts that are going through my head and just capture them. So I do it. It's easy and it's there. And then either at the end of the evening or the next morning, I will take that entire day's logs. So they're all separate audio files. They haven't been transcribed yet. They haven't been transcribed yet. And they're just in this folder called Unfiled in my Plaud app. And what I can do is I can just slide over one of them and it gives me a selection tool, and I highlight and select all of the files that I recorded that day. And then there's an option to merge all of those audio recordings into a single audio recording. And the beautiful thing is it actually it keeps the timestamps, and so it merges them together and puts them into a single audio file in the chronological order for which they were recorded. So that's why, and I forgot to tell you, at each point during the day after the morning, I don't say the day of the week and the date, the month, the year. I don't say that in any of the other daily check-ins. I just hit the record button and say, it is 9:11 p.m. and then I say whatever I want to say. So the great news is that I actually have a prompt for ChatGPT to go in and format a summary of my day that I can copy and paste and put into my Notion journal. And so imagine it says daily log for Sunday, May 24th, 2026. And then it actually has the like a heading, a header format. at the top, and it says 5:06 a.m. And then it's got a bullet point of all of the things that I stated. And then it'll have another heading, and it'll have, let's just say 8:28 a.m. And it'll have a bullet points of all the things. And it keeps doing that all the way down, all of the things that I logged. And then once it's finished creating that formatted, cleaned up version that's in my daily log for my journal, then there is a section where I ask ChatGPT to create a heading called Key Insights. And then I ask it to interpret some of the key insights that it sees from my day. I ask it to recognize patterns. I ask it to point out blind spots. I ask it to do all of these different things. It's like, listen, I want you to, can you learn and reflect back to me about what you see that would be helpful for me to be aware of based upon all of the things I said in this transcript. Again, that transcript is all of the recordings for the entire day. And so I love the key insights section. And then right below that, it also, this original prompt for GPT, it also gives me action items. And I asked it to say, hey, sometimes throughout the day, I will intentionally ask you to add something to the action items. Also, I want you to infer based upon anything in the transcript that you think should be listed as a potential action item. And so there's this big, huge bullet point list when I'm copying and pasting into my Notion journal, this daily summary that's formatted. I see the list of action items, and almost every day there's like, oh yeah, I'm glad that that's on there. Let me go put that into my project list or my to-do list or whatever you call that. Anyway, so I love this. However, it became even more powerful when I started to take the transcript. So it's nice to have all of that done automatically and every day and formatted and just copy and paste it into my journal. That is not really what has made this the most powerful journaling practice I've ever experienced. No, what happened for me is that I started taking the transcript, the raw transcript, not the formatted version of the daily log, the original full transcript of every recording that was merged together for the day. And then I would go over to ChatGPT. And ChatGPT knows a lot of context about who I am, what matters to me, what I'm currently working towards, what I'm building, what I value, what I'm committed to. And also, it's become quite aware of where I drift, or where I at least tend to drift. And so I ask it to reflect back to me the patterns that it's observing, the blind spots, themes that are going throughout the days, contradictions with things that I say I'm committed to. I want to know, what am I doing that's aligned? What am I doing that is misaligned? What are possible next steps that I could take based upon these mirrored back reflections of potential patterns and blind spots? And then I read that reflection very carefully, very thoroughly, and I will respond to ChatGPT. Oftentimes I might find myself arguing with it when necessary and saying, hey, but this, and it's like, okay, maybe. But I've trained my ChatGPT to really push back on me, not to just be a yes man. It's like I want it to tell me how it is. But oftentimes I think it's like, okay, let me give you a little bit more context. And they're like, okay, that changes things. But I will tell you, there have been many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not see that. And yes, you're absolutely right. And whew. But I don't just take everything blindly. I just check to see what resonates as true for me. And this process has become a mirror that has helped me see my own thinking more clearly, more objectively. And it is my own thinking that it's mirroring back to me. And it has been incredible. It has been so powerful. So the great news about this, this isn't new. Reflective journaling has been a part of my life for years. But now I'm no longer waiting for like once a month or every couple of days or once a quarter to do these reviews. I'm not even waiting until the end of the week. Each day, and let me just be straight. This isn't about perfection. This isn't about all these streaks or anything like that. It's not like I wake up every single morning and I'm doing my daily reflection. I just got back from 3 of the most intense weeks of travel of my life. And there have been 2 or 3 days where I didn't do this practice exactly like I'm telling you. However, all of those at the end of the day, I did actually merge the files. I did have the transcript made, and it did generate the daily log. But there had been some times where 1, 2, or 3 days have gone by, and then I'm like, oh, I should, I'm in a place where this morning it's going to be easy for me to pull out my laptop and do this while I'm on the road. Let me go ahead and process the last 3 daily logs, and I'll copy those into my Notion journal, and then I go over to ChatGPT, and I actually drag and drop 3 different text files that I've exported from the transcripts from the last 3 days. But more times than not, I like to do this on a daily basis and keep it up to date. And wow, it is amazing. So I'm not waiting until the end of the week to discover what was happening in my life. I'm actually seeing patterns in near real time. In fact, one of the things that I can tell you is because I'm seeing these experiences, these patterns, and these blind spots as I'm living them, I'm catching thoughts closer to the moment when the thought is arising. I am noticing my emotional states before they actually set the atmosphere, which I marinate in for the rest of the day. Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm experiencing an emotional state of peace, then by all means, I want to marinate as long as I can. But I don't know about you, but occasionally life brings us an unexpected, undesirable, inconvenient situation or circumstance that you weren't preparing for when you got up and made the plan for your day. And I love that when situations like that come up, I'm immediately aware of that emotional state. I'm immediately aware of the inner narrative, the narrator that's going in my head that's trying to say, "Oh my gosh, danger, Will Robin! You're in danger of all of these doom and gloom scenarios. This is how bad it can be." And all of a sudden, I'm very aware of how that's showing up in my gut, the deep sense of, just the weight of it. And I'm actually recording this in real time, and I'm actually seeing it from this place of, wow, I see how these thoughts are caused by these beliefs that create these emotions that show up this way, and I'm able to process that. I'm able to see where my attention is going because of these daily logs. I'm able to see what I'm involved in throughout my day that creates peace and clarity. The things that I'm doing that point to more momentum, where my integrity is intact, and where sometimes my integrity is not intact. I'm able to see the things that I do in my life that create fog and drift and agitation, avoidance and depletion. And by the way, going off of keto, I have the clearest evidence as to why I want to remain on the ketogenic lifestyle. It is absolutely insane just how much I have been able to consciously observe and directly attribute to going off keto for a weekend. Whew. And then I won't go on that. Let me just say, I'm recognizing all of this in real time. I'm the stories that go on in my head, and recognizing that some of those stories are just not me. Noticing that they're basically just this narrator that's trying to protect me. It's warning me. It's trying to sometimes distract me. And oftentimes I find that narrator is like distorting the details. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. There have been times when I am consciously awake and aware of those narratives, but I can tell you more often than not, when I'm not in this reflective journaling seasons of my life, I can really buy into some stories. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but wow, to be able to capture them in real time has been amazing. And most importantly, I'm able to see the relationship between my physical state, my emotional state, my spiritual state, and my business decisions. Yeah, I am becoming more conscious, more consistently throughout the day. And that is what this practice has given me. I talked about the fact that it helps me see patterns. And so I made a list in my outline here. I want to share with you. I have begun to see patterns of repeated thoughts. What are the things that I keep thinking about? What keeps coming up over and over again? What thoughts are actually useful? Which of the thoughts that I have are creating movement forward? And which of the thoughts keep me stuck in loops where I procrastinate and or I choose to not take empowering action? I see patterns of emotional states. When do I feel grounded? When do I feel agitated? When do I feel clear? When do I feel spacious? When do I feel pressure? When do I feel peace or resistance? I've been noticing patterns of avoidance. And you know what? I thought, man, I'm an action taker. But I have found that I'm very much aware of what am I doing where I'm delaying. What is it that I'm doing that I'm making complicated? What do I do that I keep circling around, but I'm not actually doing the thing that is the most important thing to do? And most importantly, the things that I'm processing, that I'm doing these actions, when actually doing these things are just me avoiding doing the real thing that matters. And why am I doing that? I'm noticing the patterns of distractions, what's pulling my attention away. By the way, I have learned that I have an obsessive compulsive desire to optimize CRMs, to-do lists, project lists. I'm an optimizer. I love it. It's so much fun, but it can be a real distraction. And I'm so thankful that I'm so keenly aware of how many distractions and how many times I'm tempted to be distracted. And you know what? The amount of times that it's actually helped me in the midst of it, I'm like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. And I'm about ready to go down a rabbit hole that I know from experience is the next 2 hours of my life. And I'm able to get like 7 minutes in it and realize, oh, I'm in one of those loops again. I'm able to find out what is actually aligned with what I say matters most in real time. I've seen a pattern of moments of peace. I actually find myself asking, wow, I'm in a place where I feel really great right now. What happened just before this? Where was I? What did I choose to do? What did I stop doing? What was I giving my attention to? It's been interesting to see the correlations of the things that I do and how it impacts the level of peace that I have. I've been able to witness a lot of aligned action lately. What actions leave me feeling clean and energized? What actions create energy after I do them? And most importantly, I've done energy audits for years, but I have more detailed clarity on what actions that I do that are draining me of energy, that are depleting my energy. What is it that I do that creates noise? What is it that I'm doing that creates a need for recovery? What actually am I doing that moves me away from the person that I want to be? And that inner narrator, I have read so many books and I agree with all of them that say that voice in my head is not me. And I recognize that inner narrator is there, and I hear it, I observe it, I'm aware of it, I'm very much aware of what it's saying, and I can oftentimes appreciate it. I can see the fear behind the things that it says. I can evaluate it and not be so attached. By the way, I'm trying to explain to you something that has been very important for me. There was a time where I was at a place in my spiritual journey that I thought, I just don't ever want to feel depressed or anxious or, all of this low energy stuff. But I have come to the place where I am able to witness and observe that emotion within me, to process it out loud, to be aware of it, to evaluate the narratives, and actually just sit with that coursing throughout my body, and then watching it slowly evaporate, slowly dissipate. Oftentimes, I find myself, I need to go for a walk. I'm just, I know there's a lot to do today. I know there's not enough margin for me to go for a walk, but I'm going to go for a walk. And I find that, oh my gosh, is that amazing? Of course, I knew it, but I'm more consciously aware in the moment. It's so amazing. That inner narrator, I know what it says. I know that it's afraid. I know it's trying to protect me. I know that it has a tendency to exaggerate everything. It has a tendency to go to what could go wrong. It thinks that it's telling the truth. And it usually has something valuable under the surface that is real, that I'm thankful that it's there. And I've come to really appreciate my, let's just say, if I was to give it the label, and it's not a great label, my lower emotional states. They're like a check engine light. And this is something that's not new to me. It's just that, man, I'm witnessing that check engine light in real time. I'm observing it more because I'm so much more consistently logging in throughout the day because of this, what I call my reflective audio journaling practice. The thing is life was already speaking the truth to me about where I am and where I'm going. It was already, my calendar was already showing me things. My energy levels were telling me things. My body was telling me things. My emotional states were showing up. My patterns of tension were fluctuating all over the place. My repeated thoughts were there. The difference right now is that I am absolutely listening intentionally on an ongoing daily basis to what's going on. And I'm more and more of the blind spots. I'm more and more aware of what's going on. And it's changing me. Personally, professionally, spiritually, it's having an impact on every area of my life. And this is the essence of the work that I've been doing for years for others, through the one-on-one coaching that I do, through the mastermind groups that I facilitate. And often the people I work with, they think, I just need more information. If I just had one more strategy, I would be able to achieve my goals. And most of the time, what we need is just help seeing the patterns that are already shaping the decisions that we're making. Most of us, I know what to do. It's just getting myself to take those actions consistently and being aware of the problem, the patterns, the blind spots. That, once you become aware of it, then all of a sudden, as soon as that's reflected back to you, the next aligned action simply just shows up. It comes up. It's clear as can be. I just want to say this. I don't think everyone needs to record daily audio reflections like Cliff Ravenscraft. You don't. I don't think you need to use the exact tools that I'm using. You don't have to do it the way that I do it. The deeper invitation here, I think, for you and for everyone is to become more consciously aware of the life that you're living while you're living it. Notice your thoughts. Notice your emotions. Notice where your attention is going. Notice the places and the people that give you peace. Notice when you're doing things and you start to drift. Notice the things that you're avoiding. And if you're in a season where you could value this kind of reflective space, where either through one-on-one coaching or in a mastermind group environment, you could have a group of people or myself personally mirror back to you what's going on in your life, I would love to tell you that that's exactly what happens. It's a place where we bring real life into the room. We slow things down, and we look at the decisions that you're making, the desires that you have, the fears that you have, the patterns of your behavior, the things that you're avoiding, the energy levels that you have throughout the days and weeks, the commitments that you've made, and most importantly, we're able to help you see the possibilities that you're not able to see yourself. If you could benefit from something like that, email me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. My email address is cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Until next time, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.